I'm a fan of my trio. I love my trio. And there's a blog called Trio Now, it's a thing called Trio Central that does nothing but recommend and market and give the message for this wonderful little device that I love very much. And Pete Rojas said this morning that there's now a long tail of trio blogs, a whole bunch of blogs just about trios. So people will recommend interesting, good products. Gordon, you run a company where people are finding the stuff that they like.
Yep.
And then recommending them. What happens when the buyer becomes the seller in this case? The buyer of the product sells it on behalf. The consumer becomes the marketer. Is there a magic that's happening there? Is that new?
I mean, you're talking about how it can get perverted in terms of the profit motive?
No, let's go to the positive. Let's go to the positive end of this.
So, I mean, essentially what it comes down to is that people trust other people. They don't want to see a statistic. They want to know, is this person who's recommending it relevant to me? It's like, can I relate to your lifestyle? So if you're recommending the trio and you say that I need it because it helps me be mobile and email on the go and all these various other things, reasons why you like it, I can say, okay, Jeff and I have something in common, so I'm going to trust his recommendation. It's like, I mean, you look at sort of the evolution of like how products have been marketed in history, but certainly on the web, it started out with like really like keyword relevance, and then it went to kind of a statistical aggregation, which isn't really like how people think about the world. It's not helpful to say 1,001 people like the trio. You want to know who are those people or dislike the trio. So now the next generation is how do you surface people that are relevant to you? You can make product recommendations that are relevant to you. And then it becomes less of like somebody selling you, but rather somebody else enabling your lifestyle. So it's not really buzz so much as it is a sympathetic or compatible point of view that helps you do what you want to do.
So it's a recommendation with authority. Authority in this case means
but authority is different because authority is like, here's somebody who can speak authoritatively about how many pixels that that plasma screen has. It's more about like, that's a cool look, like I'm going to buy a plasma screen because it's going to fit in the space that I have. It's not going to pull out of the wall because it's so heavy, and that it's good looking enough that my wife's not going to freak out about it. So it's that's what's important to me. I don't care about like all the details.
So what are the kinds of things that sell well on ThisNext? What are the kinds of things people recommend?
I mean, certainly technology products sell well, but like it's really more about the things that don't lend themselves well to search marketing. It's like what are the things that are very lifestyle driven, like aesthetically driven. So it can be sporting gear, it can be clothes, it can be food. Things that like don't lend themselves to a keyword very well, but do lend themselves to the enthusiasm of a community that's passionate about those particular products.
All right, so if you have buzz going on, good or bad, I mean, there is some buzz about everything. Even I'm sure there's a Vine blog somewhere. Somewhere in this world, somebody look up. I bet there's a blog about this.
Oh, about we hate each other.
Yes, exactly. I was going to make a bad Saddam joke, but I won't. Sorry.
That would have been a very bad joke.
It would have been a very bad joke. So you have a positive or negative. People then want to, if we argue that, go with what already exists. Find out what your customers are saying. You have a good product that's there, which we may argue with in a second. Let's just start there. Then you want to know what the buzz is. You want to measure the buzz. So I want to both of you on that, but you're in the ad business, right? You want to measure effectiveness and ROI and what happens to what. How do you measure buzz these days? What is it you measure? Can you?
Well, we really, we try and counsel our clients to go after. We're really, the total soup to nuts research isn't completed out there. Nobody's really figured out how to do it completely yet. So really, we're focusing on what we call the netfluencers, and typically they're only 5% of the population. Our own,
even 5%.
Yeah, but we think it is 5% based on our own styles data, which is the annual research reports we do to about 14,000 families. Now, it's not just people, but it's families. So we figure there's about 5% of the general population. So we try and gear our clients to only focus on energizing that 5% of the audience, who we call netfluencers right now. But they are people who we define as 75 more acquaintances or friends, either online or offline. And for folks like with Dixie, when we did sponsoring the MommyCast this year, last year, and we just started getting the research back, we found that, like you said, there's no buzz until there's buzz. There's got to be some positive impact of the product out there, and that's where we started from, that it had a great product and people were willing to talk about it.
Yeah, if I could just jump in on that. I think there's a concept in finance called alpha. Are you all familiar with it? It's sort of the measure of value add that a management team or an investor group can bring to a company or a fund. It's like I think that concept can be applied really neatly to consumers, basically. Who are your high alpha consumers? Like, so are you a high alpha consumer because you find things first, because you have a big audience, because the people who read you have a big audience? Like, why are you relevant? Or are you relevant?
Technology and marketing, I just go back to Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm. In the early days of computer marketing, there was always a constituency that knew more. These were the experts, the guys with the sort of the guys with the pocket protectors, who were part of the constituency that would create this buzz. This is not new. The internet, it's always been around. So at least in technical marketing and technology marketing. So that's what happens too. In other categories as well, whether it be entertainment or whatever the category is. There's a constituency out there that starts the machine moving and they propel it forward. It could be an aggregation of bloggers, it could be a whole bunch of things.
But now the difference is, number one, that you can participate in that in wholly new ways that cut across borders and friendships and so on. And that you can measure it in new ways. And you can measure new things, I think.
Measure how?
Well, that's what I'm about to ask Rick. If you look at a blog like, it's a visualizing data blog, I'm forgetting, it comes out of Nielsen. He takes the links in Data Money, it's the name of the blog. And he takes the links in Technorati and he measures those in all kinds of fascinating, beautiful, visual, art on the wall ways to tell you that this world operates in some new way. You could measure, yes, the influencers. You can also measure the speed of the meme. You can measure who's in on it early, who's in at the top, who's in late. You can measure all kinds of new things, and I think that my argument is that in this new medium, we need to start measuring those things so we can get the value out of it, so you get the efficiency. So, Element, as a firm, really tries hard to understand this world, and part of that is measuring. You just did a study that came out with Technorati. You're constantly looking at trying to figure out what is the buzz about your products. How are you measuring, or what are you measuring in buzz today?
Let me break that up in a couple of different segments. One, I think that we're focused on monitoring conversation more than measuring conversation.
What's the difference?
Well, in one case, you're actually listening to what's going on and trying to interpret it and sort of understand it from that perspective.
So it's qualitative versus quantitative.
It's more qualitative versus quantitative. You can actually get to some level of quantitative analysis, there's no question. And we do a lot of that with some of the folks here in the room. But the reality is, it's difficult to look at that in and of itself as an island, because what's going on in conversations online and offline are directly related to things people are seeing and experiencing, on TV, where they shop, where they get their service, whatever it happens to be, or as they talk to friends. So, to me, what's missing from this model, and I know that people are working towards it. I know the ARF is working towards some model of sort of standardized engagement measure. But I think we still have to track that down, and we're not there. We're trying to figure something out. But how we actually looked at and linked what's going on in conversations back to where it came from, and ultimately what impact it had on consumer or individual behavior. And that's what we're working towards.
So you measure that and you watch that kind of passively in that sense, what's going on, but you're also active. You're going out saying to a customer, both you are, that I can have an impact on your brand, on your sales, and your whatever. Has anything changed there in this world, or is it just the same as it always has been, and it's just we have new media, or are there new opportunities and new dangers?
Well, there's new measurements that are needed right now. I mean, you'll see that the first year programs are coming out. Like we did the Dixie sponsorship with MommyCast and things like that. We have some other ones out there too that are in development. That gets you past year one. But when you go back to your client when it's time to renew or continue the program, they've got to go back to their superiors and say, well, what did it mean for ROI? Now, a company like Georgia Pacific is now owned by Coke Industries. They need hard, fast figures that are tying back to sales. So it's a gradual process, like you were saying. We start off in the brand impact, or we have a positive impact. Then we got to quickly move to what is the actual impact on sales. So the problem is that there's no real industry data that's readily available. You can't plug in Nielsen metrics into this kind of model. So we're making it up as we go along.
Yeah, just to build on that, I think that one of the reasons that we're seeing client adoption of social media in general be slower than you might think is precisely because of that, because there is no great way to sort of say, here's the ROI on conversation, here's the ROI on this viral campaign that we happen to create. So I think people are interested in it, and to the extent that the investment is relatively small, they're willing to play, participate, test, and so on, oftentimes for the wrong reasons and the wrong way.